LinkedIn is made for business, unlike Facebook, Insta, and Friends, and it is the exception to my social media rules as it has its very own rules in business and marketing. In today's episode, I'm talking to a LinkedIn expert who shares some absolute gold about what is working on LinkedIn, what mistakes you're probably making, and where you should focus your limited time, and so much more. So make sure you keep listening. Welcome to Sales Without Socials. If you too are mentally exhausted from the constantly changing algorithms, you're not getting a return on the blood, sweat, and tears you put into your social media efforts, and know there must be a better way to market your business, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Tanya Williams. I love pink, wearing 4-inch heels, and being the sparkly chief of everything at Digital Conversations. In the last 6 months, I have transformed my business growth by doubling down on the marketing strategies that actually work, and that doesn't include Facebook ads, Reels, or silly TikToks. So if you're like me and you're sick of being on the social media hamster wheel and want to focus your time on marketing strategies that don't suck your time without a result, then make sure you subscribe and keep listening. Are you with me? Let's dive in. And you know what? Let's have a little bit of fun along the way. Hello, everybody. It's Tanya Williams here, Chief of Everything at Digital Conversations, and I am back with another episode of the Sales Without Socials podcast. And today we're talking LinkedIn. Now, you guys know that LinkedIn is my exception to the social media rules. So I decided to bring in an absolute expert that knows everything you could possibly know about LinkedIn, and that is Adam Houlihan from Prominence Global. How are you, Adam?
I'm really well, Tanya. Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you. Great to have you. Can you introduce yourself in a bit more detail and tell people a bit about your background to give us some context?
Sure. So I'm the founder and CEO of Prominence Global, and Prominence is a agency that's 100% dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and business owners all over the world to really do, as you just mentioned, really leverage LinkedIn in a powerful way. But we're also quite specialized in what we do because, LinkedIn is multifaceted,
Mhm.
but we focus on really just the B2B lead generation and personal branding space. We don't really work with sales teams. We don't do anything around recruitment and all those other great things that LinkedIn's capable of doing. And we've built over the years now. I think we're just coming into our 10th year of doing this now, and we have a team about 20 people all over the world.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
we're able to kind of help all of our clients in Europe and North America and here in Asia Pacific, and it's been a wild 10 years, I think.
10 years goes so fast, doesn't it? It's like blink of an eyelid sometimes.
It does.
It's now, as I mentioned before, LinkedIn is the exception to my social media rule. I mean, LinkedIn's always been about business. It's always been a professional platform. So therefore, it does definitely have its own rules. Why do you think it's survived so well against the dominance of the likes of Facebook and Instagram? Because as soon as you mention social media, people go, oh, Facebook and Instagram is the first thing that they say or they refer to, right? Why do you think LinkedIn has continued to do so well?
I think it comes down to two things. One is that it's had a constant process of innovation,
Mhm.
and that probably accelerated around about the time that Microsoft purchased
Mhm.
LinkedIn. And you can imagine, even though LinkedIn was a powerhouse within itself at that time. In
Yeah.
fact, the purchase price was $26 billion US dollars,
Is it
uh,
billion with a B?
billion with a B in US and
Holy.
USBs. So it's a lot of coin,
Yeah.
but yeah, then again, the might and power of Microsoft in
Mm.
the amount of resources they are able to put into it has seen it just constantly evolve in a very very good way. There's some things that a lot of people are unhappy about. There's like free tools that got taken away, but there's been so many new and good features if you know how to leverage them,
Mhm.
that make it a very very powerful platform. And the second thing is that they've stayed really true to their niche. They haven't tried to take on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, not 100% anyway. I mean, they've had their little failures, like
Like
trying to
stories.
take on stories and things like that. But Blind Freddy could have told them that one wasn't going to work. But anyway, the reality is they've stayed very, very true to the business B2B and
Yeah.
recruitment niches, whereas Instagram has its place. And does incredibly well for what it does, and of course Facebook. But they're very different, and that's the thing. They're not.
Mm.
There's really no competitor to LinkedIn as
Yeah.
far as the niche that they're in.
I think there's been a few that have started. I remember years ago there was something called BB or something like that that launched, and it was supposed to be that B2B sort of space, but nothing is. Actually would love to see a really strong competitor come in and see what they can do, because I think there's room in the market for something in the B2B space rather than everything that's happening, like TikTok and all those types of things. But it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's been others. There's like Clubhouse,
Oh yeah, yeah,
that came and went very very quickly. So yeah, look, right now it has no natural predators, so
yeah,
it's a beast of amongst itself.
yeah. What is the I love LinkedIn. I'm actively on there. I'm actively consuming content. I'm doing newsletters. I'm doing all the bits and whatever. But what are the biggest mistakes that you see make people making on LinkedIn? And I know myself, I'll see stuff and go, "Oh my god, like what are you doing? Like that's so silly, or what you've done it the wrong way or whatever," and you just want to help everybody. But what are probably the biggest mistakes you see?
Yeah, there's a few, but the first one is around profile optimization.
Hmm.
So you'd be might be surprised to know there's roughly 950 million people on LinkedIn right now.
Wow.
It's been growing at the same sort of rough rate for the last 4 or 5 years, which is two new people every second, 24
Crazy.
hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll hit 1 billion, this year sometime.
Wow.
So it's a bit of a powerhouse in that way. However, only 5% of that near 1 billion people actually have their profiles optimized correctly.
Mm,
Now, there's one thing, where you can say make a profile kind of just look nice, and often, the people make the mistake of going to companies that work more on graphic design or that type of thing and say, oh, we'll make your profile look good. However, what they miss is the algorithmic alignment. So
yeah.
LinkedIn's looking for ways to understand what you are about and who you serve through where you put certain information on your profile. So
Yeah.
that's number one, is not optimizing their profile correctly. The other one's around content,
Mm,
and not understanding that LinkedIn now, what LinkedIn, and I was sharing with you earlier that there's been this constant innovation of how it works,
mhm,
and what it really is now is it's a content driven platform, and it wants to be, and this has been very, very successful at becoming the go to place that we come looking for content about topics of interest, that
mhm,
are topics that are business related. And so, as early as, or as recently, I should say, as June, so only a month ago, there's a massive update that was made to the algorithm that now really punishes, and I'm going to use the word Facebook-like content,
mhm,
which is not to
mhm.
not to put Facebook down anyway.
Yeah,
It's the right type of content for Facebook.
yeah,
It's just not the place for LinkedIn. So what I mean by that is, that what you do on the weekend, and catching up with friends, and all that social type of content. As
yeah,
much as LinkedIn is a social platform, it's not looking to have lots of content around our social lives,
yeah.
and so now it is very much using what they call content suppression. And what that means
Okay,
is it's not
yeah,
going to stop you from uploading it. It's just going to make sure very few people see it.
yeah.
So so the second big mistake is around the type of content that you're using. And the third one, and I'm sure Tanya, you've experienced this one, is where people connect with you, and then
Oh,
immediately it's a pitch fest of whatever it is their products or services.
oh, I think I've had that happen about 10 times so far in the last 3 days, and I'm like, "Seriously? Oh my god," like, block. I'm like,
Exactly.
"I've just met you, like, I've just connected with you, don't pitch to me, like, just give me a chance to get to know you, otherwise I'm just gonna block you." Like, yeah, pet
Exactly, and
peeve, yeah.
even worse are the ones that don't make me laugh anymore because I've seen it so often. But where they actually pitch in the connection request
Yeah,
and say, "Hey, I want to connect because I've got this new Butte thing that
yeah,
is going to
yeah,
change your life."
nope.
And
But what
uh,
gets me is the ones that don't even look at your profile. Like, I've got ones that talk about, hiring staff for my team, and I'm like, I don't have a team of people, and like, IT software and stuff, and I'm like, if you see, I'm a one person, business, and it's like, if you looked at my profile, that would probably give you a few hints, but they just don't. It's just a blanket approach and copy and paste, and that's what's
yeah,
frustrating.
there's also a certain amount of that happens through the really low value automation tools that exist that
Yeah,
people are just automating all that stuff, and
yeah,
as you say, it's clearly obvious that they're not looking at your profile when they do
yeah,
that. So yeah, part of that happens from that. There was a time where LinkedIn was trying to shut down all those automation tools. They kind of got to a point, you know, fairly quickly worked out that as fast as they shut one down, another one appeared in its place.
yeah,
Uh, so they kind of changed their tack, which was quite smart, and they kind of now just limited how much stuff you can do on a daily or weekly basis.
yeah,
However, it doesn't stop that. I again, I don't laugh anymore when I see it, but it's times where I see people will send me a connection request and say, we help accountants like you do ABC. And they go, well, really? Do you want me to
really, I'm
introduce
an
you to
accountant,
my
I didn't know
accountant?
that.
Yeah. So, anyway,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and look, yeah, that's that, and it happens constantly. And as long as I suppose as long as you're not doing it, then you can just delete or whatever. Um, so I mean, you mentioned before there are lots of things and lots of ways to do stuff on LinkedIn. Like I always talk about diving deeper into the platforms that are right for you, and LinkedIn is certainly one of those for myself and a lot of B2B businesses. There has been lots of different things, like you said, stories, and then that disappeared, and then something else comes out and that disappeared. We've got newsletters now, though. We've got audio. We've got, events and lives and all these types of things that we've now got access to. Should we be using all of those? Like, and how do we know what we should actually be using? Because there is so much choice. We've only got a certain amount of time. How do you go, this is what I need to focus on?
yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? So you kind of hit the nail on the head just in what you said. Then is that you've got to make sure that it's the right platform for you,
Hmm.
but also that it's the platform that your audience is on.
Yeah.
So if your audience, and by the way, even though B2B is the main driver of LinkedIn, uh, that's not to say if you are in the B2C space that you can't leverage it
Yeah,
very, very well.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's just a bit different about how you go about
Yeah.
it. But let's say the bulk of us are going to be B2B, then the key thing is, so there's lots of different content options, as you mentioned.
Mm.
Uh, Stories gone, thankfully. Audio, to be honest, we don't do anything in the audio space. It's like Clubhouse. Again, I don't know why the heck they released that one. Live is kind of hit and miss. It's very clunky. It's like for you that's very used to
Yeah.
what you're doing with the podcasting and everything. It's not too difficult, but if you're not used to using third party live streaming tools and things, it can be very clunky. Uh, but the things like you said, newsletters definitely is a
Yeah.
good tool. Your normal status posts, which is your written short form content, and video. So video, it does incredibly
Yeah.
well. However, it's two rules around video: is one, keep it short, like know, 90 seconds or less, and preferably closer to 1 minute than 90 seconds.
Getting shorter and
And
shorter, isn't it? Like, it
yeah,
feels
it
like
is.
it's soon they're gonna be 10-second videos because it just seems to be getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, I hope we don't get down to that level, but
I
it's
hope
funny,
not.
like, 3, 4 years ago, we were saying to our clients, "Oh, keep them under 3 minutes," and
Yeah,
and then it was two, and now it was
that's
90
right.
seconds, and now it's a
Yeah,
minute. But where we're going to end, I don't know. But yeah, so short is
yep,
better, and you must use captions. That's one of the biggest mistakes I
yeah,
see is people that upload. Even though LinkedIn will now kind of auto add captions, it's better than nothing.
yeah,
But anything in automation means less than perfect. So far again with our clients, we say, look, post. And in fact, we help them do it. But post produced video content. There's lots of tools around that
yeah,
allow you to edit captions and things. So yeah, they're the three key ones that you want to be using.
yeah,
And interestingly enough, you don't need to use a lot of image based posts.
yeah.
Uh, Again, we get to work with lots of people around the world, and we analyze around 500 different LinkedIn posts every month. And surprisingly, almost always the ones with images attached get less impressions than
Interesting.
what standard status posts do. So the same content without an
Yeah.
image attached, or video content. So
Is that an
well, I
algorithm
want
thing, do you think? Is that
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yep.
Yeah, and it's a lot to do with mobile devices and
Right, okay.
the way there's an algorithm called dwell time and how it works and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I want to just say, Tanya, I'm not saying don't ever use
Yeah,
image
it's about
images.
having a
It's
mix
just
of content,
a
isn't it? Not
mix, a
yeah.
mixture of content. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I think, really important. What about things like long form posts? Like sometimes you see posts and they're like, go, it's like, oh my God, this is so long. Again, is it about having that mix? We could have maybe one of those, but then have some shorter posts as well. So all your posts aren't the exact same.
Variety is good,
Yeah.
and there's two ways you can do long form. So newsletter is one,
Yep.
where people expect, if it's a newsletter, they're going to expect it's
Yeah.
going to
It's
have
going to be
a
longer.
degree of longer content to it. So
Yep.
that's totally fine. The mistake again often is, in a status post a couple of years ago, LinkedIn opened that up to where you could have 3,000 characters of
I
copy.
remember characters.
Everything on LinkedIn works in character counts, not word counts. But the sweet spot, again, we analyze this a great deal, and somewhere in the 12 to 1500 character range. And to put that in a word count, it's 200, 220 words, somewhere
Yeah.
around that. That's the sweet spot. Don't go the full 30,000 too
Oh, yeah.
often.
That's too much. Is anyone
Yeah,
else
but
going to
if
read that?
yeah, if you do though, there's occasionally, if there's a reason to, you want
Mm,
to make sure it's a story-based, post. So you're telling a story about something that
yeah.
people can get into, and of course, the standard rules of copywriting 101 apply. You've got to have a catchy first line
Yeah.
or whatever that captures people's attention. But yeah, if you're going to go long form on a status post, make it very story-based.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Um, now let's talk strategy for busy business owners, right? Is there a simple strategy that that people can use to get noticed and build relationships? Now, obviously, we can send direct messages and we've got posting and all that sort of stuff. What's something simple that they can do in whether it's a few minutes a day or a week that's going to help them really sort of increase the visibility on their brand?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. The simplest process is to understand again, how the algorithms are treating what you're doing.
Hmm.
So you got to have a connection strategy, meaning that every day, what I would do, you can send up to 100 connection requests a week.
Hmm.
That's basically
Which
the
is a
limit,
lot. Yeah.
which is enough. But I wouldn't go and bang all those out in one day. I do, well, again, depending on how much time you've got, but let's say
Yeah.
if we put a little strategy together that could take you maybe half an hour a day,
Yeah.
Monday to Friday. I'd start by sending out, probably 10 up to 20 connection requests, very targeted to your right type of people,
Yeah.
because the algorithms look for alignment between, watch how your profile is optimized. And there's a key thing on your profile that you have to have activated called creator mode.
Yes, I love that.
So yeah, if you don't have creator mode activated, you're missing a lot of the analytics and the tools and things that are being developed. So creator mode will ask you to add up to 5 hashtags, and you'll see that when they appear on your profile, it says talks about.
Mhm.
And so there's the indicator that those the subject matter of your content should align with one or more of those
Okay.
creator mode
Yeah.
hashtags. So basically, a simple strategy is to be connecting with people and sharing 1 up to 3 posts per week
Mhm.
that are topics that align with your creator mode hashtags.
Yep.
And then the algorithms make sure that the people that you're connecting with are the first people to see your content. So that's obviously
Yep.
the thing that gets the train moving out of the station, so to
Yeah.
speak. And yeah, LinkedIn is a slow burn. So
Yeah.
think of it. I always like to use the analogy of think of it like a train leaving a station and immediately hitting a hill. And so it's slow to get
Yeah.
started, and you finally, after a little bit of time, it gets to the top of the hill, and once you get over the hill, it's off and racing. And that's kind of how your LinkedIn strategy will play out. So play a bit of a long game. Don't kind of expect. I get people often say, I put this post up about X and nobody interacted on it. I
So
said,
that's it,
well,
I'm
how long?
done.
Yeah, and it's like, when did you last post? Oh, 3 months ago. It's like,
Yeah.
really? So, so yeah, you've got to maintain a degree of consistency.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Consistency is so important, isn't it? I say this all the time about marketing in general, but particular things like LinkedIn. And I say to people, even if it's just once a week, but just consistently do it once a week. Don't do
correct.
5 and then drop off it, as you said, 3 or 4 months and then try it again and think you're going to get some sort of response. It's just not going to work.
No, it doesn't. And again, in these recent algorithm changes, another change that happened was that you are punished if you stop posting for a period of time. It used to be the
Oh,
reverse. It was a little bit weird. There's
interesting.
this little bit of hack, a bit of a hack, where if you didn't post for a little bit of time, and then you restarted, you'd get a bit of a boost in impressions because they're trying to encourage you to keep posting.
Yeah.
Now it's all about rewarding the consistent content creators. And if you stop posting for more than 2, maybe 3 weeks, then it's like back to our train analogy. Well, they put your train back at the station, and you've got to then
Ah,
climb
that's
the hill and
great.
get up and over again. So,
That's a great thing to
whereas if
know.
you
Yeah.
maintain that 1 or 2 a week, then you're over the other side of the hill, and you're maintaining a good rate of visibility.
Yeah. No, that's a really good one because I think that's an important one. I want to talk about company pages. Now, I must admit, I used to do company pages a lot, like content a lot. Then I dropped off it. I haven't done much at all because I was like, it's just me. Everything comes from my profile. Should smaller, like micro or boutique businesses, be using company pages as well as what they're doing on their own personal profiles?
So the quick and simple answer is absolutely yes.
Oh, okay.
Again, if we were having this conversation a couple of years ago, I would have said the reverse. I would have
Yeah.
said, hey, don't worry about a company page. They're only got value for larger corporations like
Yeah.
Apple and Microsoft. That's no longer the case. So the reality is that as a general idea is that 90% of your activity should be on your personal profile because
Mhm.
as you mentioned, it's about us. It's
Yeah.
about building
Because
relationships.
people are
People,
buying you, right? They're not. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're more interested in you and what you're about than your company at that
Yeah.
point in time. However, when they do tip past that, I'm interested in you, and now I'm interested in the product or service that you supply, then they'll become interested in your company and what you're about. Uh, and also, there's a number of tools that, depending on what your ultimate strategy is, there's a number of tools that you can only access through a company page now that you can't get access to
My
through
personal
your
profile.
personal profile.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, yes, it's there is a need to be building. Remember, you can't have connections on a company page. You can only have followers,
Yeah.
but you also want to have a bit of a content strategy around, a consistent content strategy for your company page.
Yeah.
But a really easy way to do that, Tanya, is just to, take the content that you are putting on your personal profile and repurpose it. And again, the content on your personal profile should obviously be written in the first person.
Yep.
It's us having a conversation directly to our audience. However, a company page, it's not a real person. It's a corporation. So
Mhm.
the languaging of your content should be third person.
Yeah.
And quite simply, all you got to do is take the first person version you're
Yep.
using on your personal profile, uh, run it through something like Chat GPT and say change this up to third person, and then you can reuse it onto your company page.
Yep.
Uh, but mix it up. You don't want the exact same content. Another mistake I
Absolutely.
often see is I'll see two posts in my feed exactly the same time. One's from you, and then the
One's
next
from
one's the
company.
exact same content you put on your company page. I'm not meaning I see that from you, Tanya. I'm
Yeah.
just using that as an
Yeah.
example. So yeah, you want to mix it up and use that same content but on a different day. And you've got scheduling ability now on both your
Oh,
company page
it's
and
about
your personal
time.
profile.
Took
Yeah,
ages
right.
for that to
It's
happen.
like talk about join the 21st century on some of this stuff,
Absolutely.
guys.
Everyone else has been doing this. Where have you been?
Yeah. So anyway, you do have it now.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why you can't. One, schedule it in advance and mix it up between the company page and your personal
And
profile.
that's the thing, as you said before, going back to that strategy of like, whether that half an hour, 15 minutes a day, having a few posts that you've created, and exactly one goes out today, one goes out tomorrow, one goes out Friday or whatever. And that way it's like, well, it's scheduled. I've got consistent content. I'm not having to
Yeah,
jump in and out constantly. I can still monitor comments and stuff off the app. It makes sense from a time perspective to be batching that and doing that in one go rather than jumping in and out. And because obviously, yeah, we know that you go down a rabbit hole and then you're over here, and it takes so much longer to do that. So having that ability to schedule directly in LinkedIn makes so much sense to actually use that tool.
totally does.
How do you see? I'm gonna have to go to the whole AI conversation here now because everyone's talking about it, right? But how do you see AI and chat impacting LinkedIn? Like there's obviously a lot of talk about how to use it, and it's obviously a starting point. You've got to humanize and personalize and all the rest of it. And we've mentioned a couple of tools and stuff like that because obviously a lot of those are using AI and different sort of technology. Do you think it's going to be a really positive thing? And how do you think that's going to impact moving forward?
Yeah, it's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mm.
And the way I see it, firstly, let me share my opinion on part of that, and there'll be some people who love me for saying it, and some that won't. And that's okay. But it's isn't it funny how many overnight experts there are in AI these days? I'll just leave it at that. So what I'd say is be very cautious of the overnight experts.
Mhm.
uh, I'll give you my view on it, and uh, not being an expert because I don't believe anyone is just yet.
Yeah,
However, I see it used well and I see it used badly, and that
yeah,
will always be the case. The other overarching reality is it's here and it's here to stay.
yep.
So we have to embrace it, but we've got to embrace it in a positive and ethical way. I don't see chat or Bard or and look, this
All
everyone
the
calls it.
variations that are out
Yeah, it's kind of like. Do you remember when rollerblades came out?
there.
And the reality is they're inline skates, but
Yeah,
everybody called inline skates rollerblades because it was the first major brand. It's the same. There's lots of versions of Chat GPT right now, but we all
yeah,
kind of think of Chat GPT.
yeah.
So the reality is that it's a great tool for doing research. And it's a great tool for, say, getting your content to like a first draft.
Yep,
And from
absolutely.
there, you still got to put the work in and make it your own and put your own point of view to it.
Yeah.
What chat does not do well is, to put what you obviously clearly can't do is put your own personal point of
Oh,
view
yeah.
towards a
Oh,
subject.
yeah.
It can give you the context of the subject and it can give you the meat of the subject. And again, where LinkedIn's going with these algorithm changes that have recently happened is it's their way of combating, the future of AI. And what the algorithms are doing now is it's favoring content you create where you're putting your personal inflection on it, your personal point of view, or your experience to it,
Yeah.
because AI can't do that. So again, LinkedIn's not going to try and stop it. They're just going to come up with ways to determine, the difference between stuff that's well written and stuff that's not.
Yeah.
Now we have a bunch of copywriters on our team. That's because that's what we do. We create content for our
Yeah.
clients, and yeah, sure, they use ChatGPT for research and the
Well, why
heavy
wouldn't you,
lifting.
right? Like it's if
Yeah,
it's gonna help you start or draft something, that could take, less time, then of course you're gonna use it for that, right? And then as you said, then
absolutely.
the next step is they need to go and then zhuzh it up and make it all nice and personal and all the rest of it, yeah.
Exactly. So that's the best. Embrace it. It's here. It's a
Yeah,
good. It's a tool. It's not an outcome. Use it well, and you'll see results.
yeah. Do you think, I get asked this question all the time from people around paid accounts and free accounts. Like when I first started on LinkedIn many years ago, I had a free account. When I moved into sales and I've upgraded and stuff, I've got Sales Nav now, and I don't use it anywhere near I should be using it. Do you think people can effectively use LinkedIn if they've just got a free account, or should they be upgrading to something like a business version or something to allow them to do more with it?
Well, again, it depends on what the outcome they're looking for.
Yeah,
So, as an example, if you're just using LinkedIn for sharing content, building a personal brand, you can quite effectively do that on a
the free account.
free account,
Yeah,
because things like Creator Mode and most of the tools are still available to you, on a free account. And LinkedIn wants good quality content creators, because it's the good content creators that attract all the rest of the audience.
yeah,
So they're more than happy for you to have good, interaction and traction there. However, when you tip over to now want to use it for some form of lead generation, then it's okay. Well, you can only have a certain amount of free value from platforms, and so yeah, I would not worry about like the premium level accounts. I'd go straight to what you have, Sales Navigator.
yeah,
Now, depending on where in the world you're based, it's roughly around $100 Australian per month. And of course, if you're in the US, it's probably like 65 or whatever.
yeah.
So they convert it roughly the same. But yeah, if you're going to start using it for any form of lead generation, then you definitely want to, as a whole reason. Again, you also want to invest in a little bit of training to understand how to use Sales Navigator well, because
Sure.
it's an incredible tool, provided you know how to leverage it properly.
Yeah, and that's something that I haven't really dived to. I've had it for so long. I'm like, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that. I just haven't got to that. Hasn't been a priority. Let's just say that. Um, I mean, there's lots of different things, and I use different ones, different tools and aspects of LinkedIn for my clients. But what do you think is being really underutilized right now? Like, what's one of the features that you go, people should be doing more of that?
Yeah, it's creator mode. So again,
Mm.
it's only like 5% of people have activated
Really?
creator
Only
mode.
5%.
Yeah, and that's
Wow.
one of the bugbears of I find with LinkedIn is that they are developing all these amazing tools, but what they don't do is, one, tell anybody how they work, or
Yes.
how they how to use them really really well, which I suppose I should be thankful for, because that's why we're in business, because that's what we do is help people do that really really well. But on a global scale, we're only helping a very very small percentage of the overall LinkedIn population.
Right.
So LinkedIn, yeah,
They
I do
don't
wish
do
they'd step up.
education well, like, as you said, like, when
No,
a new product comes out, they'll be like, "Oh, there's this new product," and you're going, "Awesome. How do we use it?" And then you've gotta be Googling, you're trying to find information, you just go even their own
yeah,
you've LinkedIn training and stuff, and you go up there, you go, "Seriously, like, you guys haven't even explained it, but you've given me half of the information. Where's the other half?" Like, they just
yeah.
don't they're not good at it.
They're not. And the other thing that you probably find interesting is they don't roll it all out. Even when they do release
Yeah,
something new, they don't roll it
it's
out to
slow.
everyone at the same time. It can take months for you to get access to some of the
I've
new
still got
tools at
clients who still
times.
don't have newsletter access, and that's
Yeah,
been out for what,
exactly.
like 12 months or more? It's crazy.
Well, yes, but now you to get newsletter access, you have to activate creator mode. So if you
Yeah,
might
but
find
but even with creator mode on, they still haven't got access to it. It's nuts.
that yeah, okay. So that's quite uncommon now,
Yeah,
but yeah, but good example. it's really weird how it can take so long.
Mm,
Part of that is when they're, and newsletters are certainly not in the new phase anymore, but when they
yeah.
do release a new tools and things, they often want to just test it, you know, and funny, sometimes I see people, going on about, oh, we're in Australia and we've actually got first access to this over the rest of the world, and often the reason that that is not necessarily a good thing. It's actually that LinkedIn considers Australia and New Zealand to be so far removed from the rest of the world that if it tanks here, they haven't really,
Oh,
upset a big part of the
wow.
audience. So
God, that's
so if we get first access at times, it's because they're not really sure about that one, and they'll test it out on, 30 million people between us and New Zealand, and often
and
it goes
fails
through
and it's
three.
not going anywhere.
Yeah, it goes through like three versions of release. It goes through alpha, beta, and
Yeah.
a controlled release. So often it won't get out of beta if it's in Australia.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. What do you think is working really well right now on LinkedIn?
Look, the number one thing, the thing that is working incredibly well, is to become a content creator that stays very niched in,
Yep.
like I said, in what, pick your 4 or 5 hashtags in creator mode.
Yep.
Well, create content that stays aligned to that. And if you do that, and you know the rules of, content and how the algorithms work, then you can get incredible levels of organic traction, way beyond what you can get in any other platform that I know,
Yeah.
by multiples of 10 to 100 times. But yeah, you've got to be, as we said earlier, the key thing around that is consistency.
Absolutely. And that you mentioned the word organic. It's
Mhm.
pretty much dead on Facebook and it's pretty much heading that way for Insta as well, obviously because it's owned by them as well. But
Yeah,
it's interesting we talk about organic. It is very different on LinkedIn to compared to other social channels, that's for sure.
that's it.
Um, let's talk tips or takeaways. What are the top three tips or takeaways you would have for someone in the B2B space to be using LinkedIn or any of the tools effectively? What should they be doing?
So yeah, the first one is, as we said, around consistency and
Yep.
content, but
Consistency.
also in that variety of content that we talked about earlier. You can't,
Yep.
again, the algorithms are going to punish you if you just do video as an example, or you just do image based, whatever. So you,
Yep.
you need to have a, consistency
Mix.
and a
Yep.
variety of content.
Yep.
So that's number one. Oh, and let's throw in that it's a given that you have to activate creator mode in
Yep.
doing that.
Yep.
Uh, the second one is around what's that next step you want people to take. So using it as a sort of sales platform
Yep.
is not going to get you where you want to go very easy. Same thing, algorithmically, LinkedIn loves you to be putting out good content, but as soon as you start making it very salesy, then they're like, well, that's what our paid ad platform's for.
Yes.
So either you step over there, and by the way, the ad platform is very, very expensive.
Yes.
So so you want to make sure you're using strategies that move people off LinkedIn and into your database. The thing you got to keep always in mind is that we don't own our LinkedIn profile, as we don't own
That's
any
right.
other platform.
Yep.
That the term I use is we get to rent some
Yes,
space,
that's right.
and
Absolutely.
we're under the direction of the
Play by their
landlord.
rules. Yeah.
Yeah, you play by their rules, or
Yeah.
you're going to get evicted. So, and people get evicted all the time. So, the key strategy, and this might sound counterintuitive to a lot of people, is not to be using it as the direct sales pitch, but moving people off LinkedIn and ethically
Yep.
into your database, like a CRM or something like
Yep.
that. And that by that I don't mean like
Subscribe here.
scraping tools and grabbing people's email addresses and putting them in CRM.
Yeah.
That's actually illegal these days. But using your content to get people to sign up or register for an event, or
Yep.
download some sort of a free tool you have, or whatever. So part of your content strategy should be always about moving people off the platform
Yep.
ethically. I'm going to always throw that word in there. And the third one is definitely around connection. You've got to be connecting with people,
Yeah.
but more importantly, so my real top tip around connection is to be very, very strategic in the people you accept connection requests from. Now, you can control very well outbound who you're
Yep.
sending connection requests to, but all those inbound ones, the days of, the dopamine hit of, oh, someone wants to connect with me, so I'm going to accept every connection request I get. Again, algorithmically, you've got to make sure that there's a reason to connect, and the reason could be that you can help that person in some way, they can help you in some way, or they're someone that might be a good referral partner, as an example.
Yeah.
So there's come up with your own rules around what a good connection looks like,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid to hit the ignore button on inbound connection requests, but
Especially
also
if you're
make
not
sure.
personalised. That's one of my pet peeves. It's like, "Who are you? What," like, I don't even know, like, you haven't even personalised it, and that's one of my pet peeves, but, I'm like saying,
Yeah.
if you're gonna connect with me, personalise it, and I'll probably accept it. If you don't personalise, I'm just gonna go, "Sorry, see ya."
Well, yeah, I'd go a step out from that, Tanya, too, because you could argue there's a case where even because someone personalises it, they're still not the right type of
Yeah,
person
true,
to
yeah,
connect with. So I look at every connection request that people send me, and even if they don't personalize it or put any reason, I'll still go and have a look at their profile. I'll go, okay, yeah, and as an example, we know that most of our audience, people that we can serve, are in the North America, Europe, and the English speaking part of Europe,
yeah,
and Asia Pacific in the English speaking part of that. So I don't really accept connection requests from people, and I'm not going to pick on, but let's just say France or whatever.
yeah,
We can't help people in the French language, so yeah, be strategic in how you go about that.
yeah. Makes perfect sense, right? There's so much to unpack. There's so much to talk about there's on LinkedIn because there you can go really deep. I mean, when you talk about, we haven't even touched on things like events and audio and all these other things that you can do on LinkedIn because there's just so much. But I think there's some absolute gold in the takeaways that you've shared already. So I know people are going to get so much out of this. And I would encourage everybody as well. Adam has twice a year webinars that it's twice a year, isn't it? I think you do them or 3 times a year now.
It's 5 times a year,
5 times
so
a year. Oh
every
my God, there you go. Every
every
2 months.
every 10 weeks
Yeah,
we
there you
run
go.
them.
That talks about the latest updates and all that sort of stuff. So I'd definitely encourage you to jump on and register for those because I know when I sit on those, I'm like, oh my God, that's another new thing. I didn't know about that because you guys seem to be ahead of the curve with everybody and knowing what's happening before the rest of us. So it's definitely worthwhile going and connecting with Adam and making sure that you're registering for those webinars when they happen because there's a lot of gold in them as well. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for being part of this very important conversation and sharing some absolute amazing tips with us all.
Absolute pleasure, Tanya. Loved it.
Thank you. We will. We should jump back in and do another episode soon and talk about something else.
Love to do that too.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. If you are curious about how your business can make sales without focusing on social media, then I invite you to check out the Sales Without Socials program. The Sales Without Socials program helps B2B service-based business owners master a reliable, consistent, and repeatable way to generate leads and sales in 15 minutes a day without posting on socials 5 days a week so you can stop chasing algorithms and start effortlessly landing dream clients on repeat. If you are mentally exhausted by the constant changes, sick of trying to beat the unbeatable algorithms, and know there must be a better way to market your business that takes much less time but gets you better results, then I promise you'll love this program. You'll find it at saleswithoutsocials.com.au. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd really love it if you can subscribe and leave a review because more subscribers and reviews help the podcast reach more people, and I would be truly grateful. Thank you for being awesome. And until next time, you tune in. Never let anyone dull your marketing sparkle.